Hi, everybody. I'm Jerry McDermott, and I'm the faculty director of the Folk Center for International Business. With me, to my far left here, is Professor Dirk Brown, who is the director of the McNair Center for Entrepreneurialism and Free Enterprise. And right in the middle here is our guest of honor, Fabio Rosenblum. I'll tell you a few words to get moving about Fabio in a second, but I just want to remind all of you, very important, please turn off your phones. There we go, okay, and your ringers. The second thing I want to ask you to do is to remember and to register, if you haven't already, for an incredible show we're going to have on Thursday, this Thursday, coming to you live in person and somewhat online, but it's better in person, in the Hootie Center downstairs, which is a very large auditorium. It is about America's future in international business and geopolitics. And it is the first in a series of forums that we're having with US ambassadors and high-level officials from State and Commerce Department in the United States. And this will be with two very experienced ambassadors who are from South Carolina, and that'll be at 4:30 on Thursday. So we ask all of you to register already and come. But let's get down to business today, so to speak. Fabio Rosenblum, I've known And I want to tell everybody that we're going to be doing a bit of an interview with him, and then we're going to be also doing Q&A. Now that Q&A also applies to everybody out in the cloud there in Fantasyland, right? So you'll be able to use the Q&A function on the webinar, the Zoom webinar that you're using and looking at right now, and then we'll get them, and then we'll ask our guests about those questions. So it will be Q&A for both people online and then in person, all right? So Fabio Rosenblum worked for Mercosur for 33 years. Now Mercosur effectively is an Argentine company, fairly large Argentine company, but is what we would call a tier one supplier in the automotive business. And he also, that company also was involved very much in supplying, basically started as supplying air conditioning systems in cars, right? And in Argentina and for the Mercosur as well. So that includes Brazil. And then you were involved with electronics, eventually electronics manufacturing in Tierra del Fuego, because that is a special export zone, import-export zone in South America. And then, but he wouldn't rest there. He's not a guy who rests, as you'll learn. He became really a leading figure inside the industry, leading in different ways AFAC, which is the Auto Parts Supplier Association for Argentina, and then being very much involved with the founding of Mercoparts, which is like a confederation of the auto parts suppliers throughout the Mercosur to battle the assemblers. And because of that, he is incredibly experienced in international negotiation as well. You basically travel all over the world dealing with partners, suppliers, clients, but also governments in trade negotiations or in industrial policy and things like that. So he has incredible experience there. But then a couple of years ago, you say, you could have gone to the beach.
I could have.
You could have. But no, you decided to get involved and put your money where your mouth is, moreover, in two startups, which is startups that capture a lot of Industry 4.0. One is Incan, based in Barcelona, which is a blockchain company. And the other one is Voltu Motor, or Voltu, which is makes the powertrain, essentially the drivetrain of cars or vehicles, but for electric. Okay, and it's storage, a company involved with storage. So that's your background. Now, I want to lead into your the first question is, given that background, tell us about how you move or what you sort of learned from those years being a corporate guy. And he did a lot of work on strategic planning, by the way. And then being somewhat of an entrepreneur to become an entrepreneur. So before we talk about your entrepreneurial life, tell us a little bit about that experience.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry. I dropped something.
I'll pick that up.
Broke the mic.
No, you haven't broken it yet. I think, here. Let me hold it for it. Yeah.
Well, good afternoon. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today and to be able to tell you a little bit about my history, which was very successful, in my opinion, and a lot of fun. First of all, to answer the question, I would like to go back to my dad. Why my dad or my mom as well? Because from the very beginning of my school years, they insisted on me and my brothers learning languages. My dad was involved in international business. He was a representative for companies that worked in Argentina, mostly from the US. The best known company is Lithium company back in the 60s. And he always insisted that learning languages, being aware that there was a world around and companies were doing business, learning the mindset of foreigners was a good thing. And I learned that. And that was my driving force to get me into business, into my job. I started working with my dad, with my family. And one day when I graduated, I realized that I didn't want to make money. I want to be a successful professional in my career. So I decided to jump. And the first job I found was at Mirgor 35 years ago. And they were looking for somebody to help them develop the international business. That was my field, the field I wanted to be in. But I had a contradiction because I was not the owner of the company. I was the owner in my family business, but I was not the owner. There was somebody else's company. How did I deal with that contradiction? I thought, if I'm going to be here, I want to stay here. I want to be an entrepreneur within the company. And I was lucky because they let me do it. And as I was talking to Dirk, a few moments ago, I told them that I believe that I was successful because common sense was something that was necessary for my work. So I had things that helped me. Common sense meant that it was at the beginning a family business. Family business, very successful, $12 million revenue for the company, 1986. For Argentina, it was good money. When I was dealing with the business, the first time I had to pay a freight check because we were bringing in some components for our manufacturing plant. I had to sign a check for $31,000. $31,000 was a huge amount coming from a small business, but this was the deal. And I thought, this is what I like. This is what I want to do. And the first time I went to Europe with the president of the company who didn't speak any English, and we had to deal with the French. He let me do the talking. He let me do the negotiations. And I started feeling that I was owning the company. And this is how I believe you have to be an entrepreneur in your work. You have to feel that you own the company, because that's the way you will drive. You become important. You have to feel that you're important in your company. You can sit down in your company and stay there and say, what do I have to do? Well, I have to do this, I have to do that. The boss will come and tell you, this is what you have to do. But if you propose things and you have common sense, I'm sure your boss will appreciate when will value what you do, and you'll be important for your company because you have ideas, you propose things.
Let me pick up on one thing with that. You also started to reach outside the company. Like you started to get involved with industry level things. Why would you do that? Because you could have, most people don't do that, right? Especially from large corporates.
Well, Jerry, you know, one of the things, when I met you, you talked to me about clusters. And clustering is...
You didn't learn everything. It's an inside joke. I'm sorry.
But you talk to me about clustering, and this is very important. Being in the auto business, the auto business has a value chain where you have the unions, where you have the suppliers, where you have the car manufacturers, where you have the government. Especially in a country like Argentina, where there's regulations, there's government imposing things, and there's the unions who want to have a strong position. And basically, because the engine of this automotive chain is the car manufacturers, and they're very strong, they're big. And you're small. I mean, the power of the supplier is small. So you have to be smart to think that if you want to be strong in your market and you're small, you have to be there doing your destiny. You cannot let others do your destiny. You have to work on that. And this is the reason why I decided to go. I had a boss who told me one day, Fabio, I want you to be the more knowledgeable guy on the automotive industry in Argentina. And of course, I'm not. But in order to be able to do that, you have to be involved in the trade unions, in the negotiations, in what's going on with the legal requirements, and dealing with the different players in the value chain was very important for me. And this is something that we needed to do if we wanted to be successful in our business.
And how did that translate to do this transnationally, like with Brazil?
Argentina and Brazil formed Mercosur in 1994. And there was, Brazil is a bigger country than Argentina, has a stronger industry. And again, we were the weak guys in the union. And for some reason, the Brazilians thought that they could overtake our industry, and they didn't need Argentine suppliers. If we are a trade union between the countries, we can do everything in Brazil. That's what they thought. But there was one thread that helped us in this strategy to become important for them and do something in common. There was a thread, the free trade agreement with the Europeans. And Brazil was big for Mercosur, but very small for Europe. And they needed us because although we were small, we had good influence with the government, we had good conversations with the government. They needed a partner who would help them against this big influence of the European brands. So we told them, look, you can lead our union in Mercosur because you're the big guy. We don't want to be the leaders. You can be the leader. We will help you, but let's form a union and work together. And they accepted it.
So I notice a pattern here, right? You sort of like, you figure out your position within the bigger picture, and then you're constantly testing how to find new opportunities, but being realistic. Like you're realistic that you're not going to overpower a giant player, but you can figure out ways to be innovative with that player.
Right. Yeah. Right. I have a story from the 90s. Renault was a big company in Argentina. We were small, but they were going into the just-in-time idea. And just-in-time was something nobody had done before in Argentina. So we said, we're going to do that for you. And not only that, we're going to add service to the manufacturing. I mean, you can do a product. It's okay. You supply a product, you give the product, good quality, good price, no problem. But if you want to add value, add service to your product. And then when you add service to your product, then you become more important. So we told them, we're going to do your engineering. We are all air conditioning experts. You're a car manufacturer and you are a designer. You're an expert in cars. but we know about air conditioning. Let us be your air conditioning department. And we gave them that. We did a lot of service for them, and that was the way to retain the customer. And well,
make value added too.
Yeah, value added.
Fabio, I have a, so first of all, the background that you did, that's okay. The background that you just provided was really intriguing to me because I have nothing to do with the automotive industry, and yet everything you've just talked about is very applicable to things I've been doing in my career, and I suspect applicable to things that the students in the audience will be doing in their career. We spend a lot of time in higher education focusing on domain expertise, like teaching marketing or accounting. And yet a lot of what you talked about, you said you're not necessarily the strongest domain expert in automotive industry out of the chute in Argentina, and yet somehow you managed to create remarkable progress for both Mercosur and also for these organizations. How would you think, as for the people that are early in their career and seeing the audience, how should they think about their own skill set in terms of the importance of their domain expertise and then the importance of their ability to think innovatively and do these kind of what Jerry was talking about, sort of weaving your way through your career and looking for opportunities. You know, I like you when you said you feel like you own the company, looking for opportunities and basically being entrepreneurial in their career versus just methodically, you know, pursuing their domain expertise.
Yeah. I have to share a secret with you, and this is personal theory. I call it the empty spaces theory. It's my own development. And normally in companies, you get a chart and you get a set of responsibilities, and they tell you have to do this and this and this, and somebody else does this and this and this, and somebody else does this and this and this. It's impossible to cover all the things. Keep your eyes open, keep your head open, and see where they need you, where there are things that nobody's taking care of. In my experience, nobody will come to say, what are you doing? We didn't tell you to do this. Nobody's doing that. And people get comfortable because when nobody's taking a space, an empty space, and somebody's doing that in the empty space, nobody will tell you, don't do that. They will be comfortable because nobody wants to do that.
Or should I say, the only one who does say that is the person who pesters everybody. So then that point is discounted.
So when you are this type of person that you want to be involved, the one thing I recommend is understand the process of your company. Understand your company very well. You don't have to be an expert. Maybe you can be an expert in engineering. You can be an expert in marketing. You can be an expert in finance. But maybe you don't need to be all those things. You need to understand the whole picture. You have to look at the company from the top down, sorry. You look at the company that way, and then you learn things. And when you understand what your company does and you understand the empty spaces, then you can succeed.
So it sounds like you need to be an entrepreneur.
That's the combination. You become an entrepreneur because you learn and you understand the things that are not being done that the company needs. And when you get into those empty spaces, you have it done.
Right. And so that's notice what he did is actually he then did that in the industry, because then you guys changed the way the auto parts industry was totally organized and communicating inside itself, and then with Brazil, and then with the assemblers, and you did that with Rodolfo.
Yeah, and then one day we thought the decision makers in the car manufacturers in Argentina are not in Argentina. They are in Europe, they are in Japan, they are in the US. We cannot talk to these guys in Argentina anymore. We have to go outside. That's why I say languages, mindset, learn how to talk to these people. Go there and make yourself important, although you're small. And that's when we started to talk to the car manufacturers in Europe and proposing things. You know, once they have the investment in Argentina and they need to keep the machine running and keep making cars, they need suppliers who can support their strategies. If you go to them and tell them you understand their strategies, you understand what they want to do, and you understand what they need to do, then they respect you.
Do you think that's why you told me then why Samsung and LG and Nokia showed up to ask you to introduce things that you had never formally done before in electronics?
Well, this is a different thing, and this is more related to our company, to Mirgor. Oh. Our company, our country in 2001, 2002 went through a very deep crisis. Our sales went down from $121 million in 1998 to $36 million in 2002. And we had to find ways to diversify our business. And we were in a manufacturing area where we could eventually become electronic manufacturers, and cellular phones were starting to be important, and Argentina wanted cellular phone manufacturing. So we went up to Nokia. I told them, we can do your phones for you. We didn't know anything about cellular phones, anything. There were other people who were making cellular phones in Argentina, but Nokia chose us. Why? Because we had the automotive quality. Quality is a very big issue in this type of products. Consumer electronics quality, you can imagine, if your phone fails, you throw it away, you buy another brand. So we started with Nokia, but then Nokia was bought by Microsoft and they started to lose power. In the meantime, we became TV manufacturers for LG in Argentina. And LG and Samsung are great competitors. You cannot make products for LG if you work for Samsung and the other way around. But Samsung came to us and said, leave LG, come with us. So we started making their products. And then Samsung was satisfied and said, you have to build your retail area. We were manufacturers. We didn't know anything about retail, but we had to learn because it was so important to work with Samsung, number one brand for cellular phones in Argentina, that we moved into that.
Wait, but then how did your revenues ever rebound?
I told you we started with, I started in the company, and that year, 1986, the revenue was $12 million. By the time I left, we were over $1 billion in sales, adding the electronics. And then one day I told my president and boss, I told him, look, we know about cars, we know about electronics, and the new trend in cars is electronics. Electronics are coming. Why don't we do electronics for cars? And we went to Toyota and said, we can do electronics for cars. They said, okay, talk to Pioneer, who makes our infotainment units. And we became infotainment suppliers for Toyota.
So now let's pivot to your startup.
Yes.
So why did you do this? Why did you feel you had to go and get involved with these type of companies, first of all? And then, what sort of learning process have you gone through in dealing with those new challenges over the past year or two?
Okay. First of all, I should say that I loved my job and I wouldn't have left. 33 years were good years and I could have stayed. But one day I realized I was over 60 and I had two choices. I could stay there for the rest of my career or think about other things. And I thought, I want to be an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur. I've been a guy who worked for a company and brought business to the company. Now I want to bring my own business. And I had my friend Rodolfo, who Jerry knows and mentioned. We were talking about, what do we do with, we've learned a lot about technology and we want to do something in technology. What can we do? So we founded this. We thought we could use technology for traceability. Traceability, the food industry is talking a lot about traceability. You want to know what you eat and where it comes from. And we thought maybe we can apply technology to that. So we founded a company in Barcelona, in Spain, and we started with that. Our young partner who lives in Barcelona, 33 years old, I'm 64. He found some guys who started discussing blockchain because blockchain was the one thing we wanted to use for traceability. But we completely, jumped from the traceability. We will come back to traceability, but we will use our company Incan with a blockchain application in your phone where you download this application, you use it with your camera, you take a picture, that picture is cryptographed, and it adds timestamp, GPS, and the email, the ID of your phone. And then you can know if we take a picture now and say, I was sitting with two professors at USC at a certain time, nobody can alter that photography. And that helps for fake news combat, it helps for inspections, for validation of authenticity. And then probably one thing that you know better than me, NFTs. NFTs are becoming a big thing, and we are going to NFTs. 6 months ago, you asked me about NFTs, and they can tell you better than I.
What's an NFT?
Non-fungible tokens. Now digital art is sold on digital tokens. People want to have ownership of digital art in digital ways.
Right.
Well, something I try to understand. I don't understand so much. So this is my company in Spain. But I wanted to be close to the automotive industry, and I have met in 2017 a guy who had developed a patent for renewable batteries for powertrain applications and for storage applications. And being close to the car was something I liked. So I invested in the company, and now we are building powertrains. We are developing the company. It's a startup in Argentina. Will soon move to the US, hopefully. This is what we are trying to do, and become the powertrain, the drivetrain suppliers for vehicles. It will be difficult in the beginning to convince BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, Ford, or General Motors to use our technology because they want to have their own technology. But we know that smaller companies are looking for this type of solutions because we are convinced that environmental issues will force vehicle manufacturers to soon adopt this kind of technology. This is coming very fast.
What are the three main projects involved too that you just?
The main projects involved too is firstly, we're working on the application of our technology in ATV and UTVs, the quads and the side-by-side units, which are used for recreational sports, but also for work.
And where are you doing that? Right now?
We're working in Germany with a company in Germany who is interested in applying our technology to their vehicles. We are also retrofitting. Retrofitting means taking out the original internal combustion engine and putting an electric powertrain. We're working on a project that was financed by the Inter-American Development Bank with the city of Buenos Aires for buses, public transportation, short range.
And if I understand correctly, just to give you an idea what the economics of that is, a new diesel bus costs about $350,000 to $400,000. A new electric bus, well, we've seen in the press, is about $600,000. A retrofitted bus costs about $150,000. So to think about plus, and you would say that the maintenance just drops off, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, certainly. There are two things now. Energy cost to load the battery is cheaper than gas, and also the maintenance becomes.
What's the parts differential you told me to?
Yeah, I told you about if you take an internal combustion engine, you have 130 moving parts. In the powertrain, you have 3 moving parts. So that's a big difference. But this is very important to know that United Auto Workers did a research and a proposal because, workers will suffer with the loss of jobs. But they are very smart, and they did something very interesting. They said, if we don't do that, if we don't change our powertrain policy, we will lose more jobs because jobs will remain in China. We need to have electric vehicles in this country, and they're working and helping the industry become. And they know they have to train workers to readapt them to the new environment.
And what's the third line of business you were working on?
Storage units for the residential applications. Storage can be alone, or it can be with the generation on the solar grid, and then you generate your own power.
So this is resonating with me again. So, your background, well, a lot of what you're talking about is large company reliability considerations. Nokia came to you because of reliability. You're talking now about doing deals with, international deals. So a lot of this sounds, even though you're talking about startups, it sounds like big company stuff, big projects. You can't afford to, really fail in a big way. And yet, when we teach about entrepreneurship in an early stage company like the ones you're with, we oftentimes teach about lean startup methodology or discovery-driven planning, build, measure, learn, just try it, fail fast, move on, try again. How do you reconcile moving fast in an industry where the reliability constraints are amongst the highest in the world?
I will use lesson learned from the Japanese, from Toyota. The first time we met with Toyota and we started discussing the project, we thought, these guys will take forever. It takes forever to launch a project. But we learned that that studying process, that planning process, means that once you launch, you don't make mistakes. Because many times you can go fast to the market. But if you go fast to the market and you make mistakes, there are two things. First of all, you have costs because you have to redo things again. And the second thing is your prestige, your image with customers. You cannot fail in these type of industries. Imagine that you launch a car and then you have a huge recall. It costs a lot of money. So they take more time. They're faster to the market because they don't make mistakes. Once they launch errorless. And this is one of the things that you learn. For startups and many times for technology startups, people become very anxious. We have to go fast because technology is moving so fast. We have to go fast. Okay, maybe some companies can afford to make a mistake and do that. But I recommend that you combine planning with going fast and testing, especially if you go into consumer or durable goods markets. You have to test before you present your product.
Fabio, this is great because I don't know if any of my students are there's a few of them in the room. So we talked about Eisenhower's famous quote, plans are nothing, but planning is everything, right? You talked about that earlier. And that's a very deep statement if you think about it carefully. And then we also talk a lot about when you can accept failure and when you cannot. And in your industry, it's very interesting because you can accept failure in some areas and not accept failure in other areas. And the fact that you understand that both from an industry knowledge perspective and a common sense perspective is really interesting. You're working on these two different startups. First of all, why you work at two startups. And then second of all, can you talk about the differences between them a little bit and how they differ from a big company? Because you've now had experience in very high tech, manufacturing, big company, small company. You have the broadest experience of almost anybody I've met. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what are the management differences in these different things you've done?
Well, that's a tough question, but I'll try to answer based on my experience. First of all, when I left Mirgor, when I decided to leave Mirgor, it was because I was going to concentrate in my Spanish project. But the founder of Automotive, who was close to me, was insisting that I should do something with him because he liked my experience. I was an investor. I had invested before, and he said, "Come work with me. We can use your experience." And leaving the auto industry was difficult for me after 33 years. I still like it very much, and I feel there's lots of interesting things happening and that will happen in the future. And I had to decide, how do I do my work? And one of the problems I should recognize is I always want to be where the noise is happening. I want to be involved in things. And it was very difficult because there was this opportunity for my company and there was this other opportunity involved too. And I wanted to do everything. And now it's taking a lot of time, a lot of effort, but I enjoy it. And,
passion, right?
Yeah, when you have passion, you can do things. And I spend a lot of time working, but I enjoy it.
We're going to move to questions in a second, but before we do that, I want to pick up on something that you mentioned before that relates to this. Being an analog guy in a digital world, right? So we're all about enamored with Industry 4.0, and you're all digital people, right? You're on the phone, you think the phone, it's an app world, right? So tell us about, we could go in so many directions because that's a generational thing, and maybe we've heard this before, but tell us a little bit about how you've had to deal with that. And what are the ages of these directors you're dealing with often and the people you're having meetings with?
Okay, the founder of Automotive is, I think he's under 40. He's 38, 39 years old. And many times I have to deal with the fact that I'm old. I'm 64. And I have to be up to the situation. And sometimes he feels that by planning or slowing down and thinking about things, reflecting about things, I'm slowing down the company. So one day he comes to me and gives me this book called Blitzscaling, Reid Hoffman. And Reid Hoffman explains how fast they did things with the software industry and how disruptive they were, and they were taking risk and all these things. And then the founder of Volto was telling me, you have to be fast to the market. Yeah, okay. But what about consumer goods or durable goods if you don't test them, if you don't plan, and if you make mistakes, if they fail? Then your image will go down, and then you have to redo over again. So in order to be up to and I say, I'm an analogic guy, meaning maybe I go slow. For digital guys, and this I learned from my daughter's experience and talking to somebody who was helping with my daughter. Digital people want to snap their fingers and have everything very fast. And many times in these type of companies, doing things very fast can lead you to mistakes, and you have to be reflective. So I try to explain my ideas to the younger people, and my younger people need to understand what I mean and what I feel and what I think and what my experience tells me to say. And we have discussions, but at the end of the day, it's a good combination. So I recommend that you be patient with analogic guys.
Oh, actually, can I? Yeah, I'll make another comment. So I'm an engineering background. For those of you who have engineering background, so digital is binary, ones and zeros, black and white, yes or no, right and wrong. Analog is shades of gray. It's a continuous signal. And I would argue that you're an analog guy in multiple ways, including the ability to look at a landscape and what was it that you said? See the blank spaces. And I think if people walk away from this conversation with some learnings, one thing I would ask them to listen to is when you talk about the way you view a large company or a small company is very entrepreneurial, is very creative, and you've brought a lot of value to many companies doing that. And I think that would be an opportunity for other folks to learn from and bring a lot of value to companies in their career as well.
So we have some questions now. If you want to ask a question here, we keep dropping down. It's underneath again.
Fine.
So if you want to ask a question here, just raise your hand. We'll give you a mic. But let me start with one all the way from the bottom of the world.
Oh,
right. So this is from one of our great alumna, Patricia Duane in Chile.
Oh.
And it says, I live in Chile and asked the GM and of an auto distributor here if EVs will be available in 5 years on a mass scale. He said no, because the
huge world demand.
Yeah, huge world demand will only allow imported markets to win supply. Do you agree? What do you think of that? And what do you say to GM?
No easy questions.
Oh, wait. He said the GM. So it's not GM, it's general manager. The general
distributor.
Yeah.
Let me look at the question so I know I have it right. Depending on the market where you are, things will happen faster or slower. When you look at the electrification and the speed in different markets, Europe is going faster than the US. Yeah.
Is that because of infrastructure development too?
No, I believe it's because of the cost of energy and also because of the environmental regulations. But California, for example, is going fast. California is going fast. Other states are going slower. But I don't agree that in 5 years EVs will be available. The problem is how fast cost will go down. This is the main problem, not availability. Of course, now today we have some restrictions, some restraints based on power electronics, which are used for engine management, energy management, and also for cell manufacturing. So I would say that the speed of adoption will be related to how fast cell manufacturers will increase their supply.
But doesn't then, just to stay on that topic, isn't the issue that you have a couple of problems? One is we have a distance problem. Like, why do I want to buy an electric vehicle if I can't go more than 200 miles? And then I got to wait couple of hours to charge it, right? So with the cost, so what are you seeing, where are you hearing about storage and also charging? Storage.
Anxiety to range. That's one of the things that industry needs to solve, anxiety to range. If you're going to go with your car from here to, I don't know, to Washington, D.C., and you have to stop 3 times and you have to spend 1 hour waiting for your car to reload, you won't move to electric. Right. So infrastructure, range, these are the 2 things apart from cost. Curves will cross very soon because costs are coming down fast. The problem is infrastructure. Problem is how often you have to stop to recharge your car.
Now that question before was from Chile, everybody. What do we also know about Chile as it relates to this industry? Because there's the world's largest lithium supply is in a space where it's at Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina. And what do you see happening there? Because like we could say, well, you could do whatever you want, but the development of lithium basically determines the future of the industry.
One of the things I learned was that lithium is important, but also there's other chemical components necessary to build a battery, like cobalt. 90% of the cobalt of the world is in Congo.
Wow. That's a difficult place to do business, I hear.
I don't know much about Congo, fortunately, but available lithium is maybe one advantage. But the problem is lithium from a mine needs to be industrialized to be taken to the battery. Right. And then if you don't have the technology and you don't have the scale, you can have all the lithium of the world, but How do you put it in your battery in your electric car?
Right.
And this is something that you need to think about.
Okay, let's go with a question out in the audience, right here in the front row, and then we'll go to the back. And don't worry, we're getting more to the online questions soon too.
So thank you for sharing.
Could you say your name and?
I'm Alessio Domenica from Italy, and I'm doing the MIB program with Professor Paterno here. And thank you for sharing your experience, first of all. I had a quick experience in Germany with electric cars and by Audi. And I wanted to ask, you mentioned earlier that it's difficult for these big companies to rely on technology produced by other suppliers, external suppliers. So my question is now, how can these suppliers develop a product that adds value on what these companies can produce themselves, so to kind of incentivize these companies to rely on external suppliers?
That was difficult. Well, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is the only way to do that is to develop a competitive advantage. So by doing research and investigation and applying your new technology and your advantage, this is the way to crack the business. But in general, you know, consider that mostly today with ICE, with the internal combustion engines, all the car manufacturers want to make their own engines. They don't outsource. There are some companies that may outsource their engines, but in general, most companies make their own engines because they want to control the heart of the unit. So I believe that the same thing is happening on powertrain applications for companies like Volkswagen, BMW, General Motors.
How do you reconcile that? Because we know that's about innovation in your one, right? So the big company, sure, they have all the resources, but it's not always the most innovative on a particular thing for bureaucratic reasons and also for specialization. Whereas, so do you think that the key breakthroughs are still going to come from like independent companies?
I believe so. And I saw that in 2017, I had the chance to go to an accelerator in the US, Plug and Play in California. And one of the things I noticed there was that companies were paying a fee to be able to meet with innovators who were being accelerated. And the reason I learned was that R&D and new technology development was happening faster in startups than in their own internal operations. So I believe that the success of startups is when they innovate and they have something nobody else has.
Okay. In the back, could you just stand up and state your name and what program you're in?
Hi, my name is Madison Beckles. I am in the Master's in International Business program from the United States. I have a question also regarding electric vehicles. So the predominant, I guess, pushback on electric vehicles is at least the fact that it's not necessarily environmentally friendly if the disposal of batteries is not carried through. So as you, as a battery supplier, do you have any plans with companies as to how to dispose of those batteries, or do you have any, I guess, previous agreements on how to kind of combat that issue?
Okay, good question. And we at Automotive have a plan. You know that probably the performance demand for a battery on an electric car could give you a range of about 8 years, depending on how you charge and how you take care of your battery. But after that, you can use your battery for storage applications. So our idea is to be able to take these batteries that need to be replaced, and probably in some cases, the battery will last longer than the vehicle. So 8 years, if in markets like the US, probably the change will happen faster But then you can take your battery and use it for storage applications and put it in storage units and reuse it.
Right.
Of course, this does not answer the whole question, because what happens after the storage application life is over, and then you have to, I don't know, but I read, but I don't know much about this, I'm not an engineer, but I read that there are some people working on the possibility of taking out the cells and reusing the chemical products inside. But I don't know much about that. I cannot talk.
I think one of the interesting things is think about the trade-offs, especially if you've been to a place like Latin America. One of the projects he's doing right now is with the Inter-American Development Bank, and they're co-financing together a retrofitting of city buses. And that's a pilot going on. And if you know anything about large urban centers, they produce a lot of noise pollution and air pollution, particularly through buses.
Right.
So this is why the IDB is doing it. And I think it's, one change creates another problem. But I have to tell you, being a city person and involved with cities, this could be transforming, really, to be able to have a very a cost-effective way to changing public transportation. It really would. If you've ever been to places like Buenos Aires or Sao Paulo or Mexico City, I mean, it's monster places of just buses. So I really find that fascinating. Okay, there's a question here in the by our gentleman here. Yep.
Hi, my name is Will Prelo. I'm talking about being analog people. I was the last class at MIBS before we had a computer center in 1985. So I feel your pain, but I'm a car guy too. And having heard your story, I would expect that we have an interest in common. The retrofitting fits right into this. The classic car collection market, there's so many beautiful cars from the 50s to 60s. You get much older, if they're really worth anything, you're probably never going to retrofit them. But in order to be able to drive your 75 3.0 CS or whatever on a regular basis, you're going to want to retrofit it at some point. And the engineering involved in doing that is not motors on the wheels. It's something that fits under the hood and drives the drive shaft straight through the transmission. It's not sexy. It's not the newest thing, but I would think for a company like y'all's, the market could be tremendous. You could own the market. Volkswagen buses.
But
That's what you're looking at.
But you raise an ethical question here. And the ethical question is, would a car classic lover guy accept to have his engine changed for an electric powertrain?
I think we will. There are a whole lot of us who will.
On the other hand, vinyl albums came back.
So it'll overpower the brakes, the wheels, the tires, all the other engineering. If you move toward a $35,000 conversion on a car that's worth $100,000. So
Very interesting.
That's interesting. We've never thought about that.
Yeah.
We've never thought about that. If you do it, normally, I believe, and I'm not an expert on this, and I'm going to say something that comes out of my mind. If you own such a car and you want to use it, you probably don't go into economics. But if you go into economics, you will never do that change, because the cost, compared to the payback, I wouldn't recommend for a normal street car, I wouldn't recommend the retrofitting, because the cost of that would never be paid back, because you don't use it so heavily. And payback is a heavy use of your vehicle, and you never pay it back. So for a normal street car, don't change it, don't do it. For this type of car, you have to think about that, but forget about the economics.
Yeah. We got a lot of questions coming up here. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Josephine Brasio, and I'm from Indonesia. I just wanted to spark another discussion about the bigger picture, like you mentioned at the beginning of your lecture. How do you maintain a balance between like a careful and thorough planning to minimize failure, to maintain your brand reputation in such a digital, fast-paced era where competition is very fast-paced and everyone's trying to race to find like the newest innovation?
Thank you.
That's a very interesting question and a difficult one too. The first thing I would say is you sit in your boardroom and you fight with all the people because you will never reach an agreement. There were people that want to go fast and they have reasons. And you said one that is very, very important, the speed at which technology is changing. And this is something that you have to consider. The other thing is, how do you do that without or minimizing your mistakes? And then you have to make a balance and say, how much will it cost me to make a mistake and how I can, solve it when I make it and learn by doing it. And this is where I go to this remark related to check, do all this checking that you have to do. And you have to keep all the time I would say you have to be tight in your boardroom, discussing these type of things and finding the right moment to do things. You don't relax and say, oh, I take all my time to plan, because you can be dead by the time you finish. But don't do things that are crazy that could put your company at risk.
Okay, one second. I want to get to some people online. So we have from Azar Osman, I think a student of ours, right? On the future of blockchain technology. Historically, public understanding has been intertwined with cryptocurrency. Do you think there is a lack of trust for blockchain due to this relation? And do you think other interesting applications can thrive despite the possible future challenges with cryptocurrencies?
I have to admit, I'm not an expert, and I don't know if I will give the right answers, and I don't want to disappoint the person who asked these questions. But yes, I believe that cryptocurrencies have taken all the blame and the success of the blockchain application. But now there's people working on other blockchain applications. There's lots of people working on different types of applications. For example, let me give you an example. Let's suppose that new students are working on a joint project, and so, everybody needs to be the owner of his idea, but you need to share it with others who will use it. Blockchain can help you with that. I mean, by showing who added what to a joint project. And this is one thing that can be used for blockchain. And I believe that by showing that blockchain is not only for cryptocurrencies, but for other applications, then blockchain will probably become more important and more interesting. There are lots of companies and big companies working. IBM is working on blockchain for example, for logistics, to make it more reliable, things that cannot be changed, that can be used for right and truthful applications. Blockchain will come. But I'm not an expert. I just give my opinion based on some of the information I've gathered over these years which we have been working.
All right, front row.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Fabios from Germany. We talked a lot in class about getting involved with the business ecosystem, to avoid the term cluster here. And you said also for your previous career, it was very important to get involved with the industry and the ecosystem. How are you planning to duplicate the success with getting involved with the ecosystem with Automotive, and how does it look in practical terms?
Mm-hmm.
I should say, by the way, and I think a couple of our students, especially Federica, would like this. So he did send me a couple months ago a slide with what you thought was the ecosystem of Baden-Württemberg for your industry.
Yeah.
And it was all these different types of organizations and institutions. And I never even talked to him about doing it, but that's amazing. You did that.
No, I didn't do it.
Who did that for you?
No, somebody did. Baden-Württemberg did it. Not. I didn't.
That's a lesson for the competitors of other regions,
No,
like in South Carolina.
No, but it's a good, interesting question because I'm new in this environment of the electric vehicles, but of course, if I want to sustain what I said about being owner of your own destiny, you have to understand. And Automotive is a company which was born in Argentina, but the CEO and many people at the company share the idea that for these type of technologies, the market is the world. And if you want to be in the world, you have to go closer to the bigger markets. But in order to be able to do that, you have to understand what's the environment like, what's the market like, and you have to be involved and discuss with people. And thanks for the question, because the reason why I'm here this week, apart from having the honor to speak to you here today, which for me is amazing, it's also because Jerry McDermott, who's a friend and a very knowledgeable person, brought me here and said, South Carolina is a good environment for you to land. And I'm talking this week with lots of people who know a lot about the industry, who knows a lot about South Carolina. And we're talking to the Department of Commerce. I went to McNair Center yesterday. I'll be talking to some other people. And I try to learn. And learning, talking to people, understanding their mindsets, seeing how you can deal with your destiny by dealing with them, letting them know you, showing them that you are serious about your plans. This is what we're doing. And we're studying. We went to Germany 3 months ago. We were with the Bavarian authorities and with the Baden-Württemberg authorities, and they told us, come here, come to our market, stay here. A lot of regions who understand the advantage of having the new technologies in their markets are trying to give you the opportunities to be there. And this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to understand that.
All right. So we have in the back and then Federica, and then we'll move over there, right over here, Andrew. And then I think we move over here, Peyton. Okay, go ahead.
Hi there. My name is Igor from Ukraine, and I have a quick question about back to blockchain. So we hear a lot about regulation of cryptocurrencies and other use of blockchain. Is your company afraid that NFT is going to be regulated? And if so, what are your plans in doing that?
Good question. We haven't thought about that yet. But, I'm not so scared about NFTs being regulated, because at the end of the day, an NFT is a private decision between two parties. It's different from issuing a currency where you are advancing over the central bank's responsibilities. So printing money, issuing money, well, that's a big thing. Governments don't want you to do that. But if I have a digital property and I'm going to sell it to you, why would somebody tell me what I have to do with that? So I haven't thought about that, and thanks for the question, but I don't believe NFTs will be regulated unless we break some rules, which I don't see at this moment.
Thank you.
All right. Right up here, Federica.
Hello, my name is Friederike Kutzelke. I'm also in the Master of International Business cohort, and I'm from Germany. So my question is, you said that testing is really, really important, especially in the consumer-related industries. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, and how important are behavioral economics and behavioral science principles in this and also in your companies?
Thank you. First of all, probably we need to elaborate on a thing that is within a company, you have a thing called the cost of quality and the cost of non-quality. The cost of quality is whatever you do to prevent the cost of non-quality. So why do you test? Because you want to make sure that your product is reliable. Car companies, when they make a change, they will require the car to run for 75,000 kilometers, 100,000 kilometers, 150,000 kilometers, just to make sure they don't have the cost of the recall, which is the cost of non-quality. And normally you spend money on quality because you don't want to run the cost of non-quality. And this is basically what you have to do. And then you have to balance. You have to understand the economics of quality cost, non-quality cost. How do you deal with that? And total quality concepts are involved in this thing. And this is why how you deal with those things. Normally engineers, quality engineers doing lots of statistics will be able to tell you how much you have to test before you can say this something is reliable. I cannot elaborate more because I'm not a technical guy, but basically my answer would be that the quality cost and non-quality cost should be involved in your economics, and testing is necessary until, I mean, there is a trade-off between the cost of quality and non-quality. And then you decide based on those numbers.
Okay, we have another question from the stratosphere, from Julia de Riva. What do you think about young people who start working for a startup straight after university? Or do you think working for a bigger or multinational company would be better? So, interesting dilemma for this generation, right? For anyone, generation.
I don't think there is a formula that you can. I was telling Jerry the other day that I met a guy in Florida last week. He's from Argentina, but he moved to the US because he's in the residential storage business. He's 28 years old. He could be my son. We had a very interesting conversation, which was supposed to last 1 hour, but we spent 1.5 hours because he was interested. And during that conversation, he told me, I want you to meet somebody who is working on the residential storage business. And I think you like him. He is responsible for the business development of a company called Iguana. But I have to warn you one thing, he's 19 years old. 19 years old, wow. So this story, I use this story to tell you there's not a set formula. And what I would recommend is that you have working experience. You can go to a big company and learn a lot. I remember that when we had a partnership with Valeo in France, young people in France wanted to work for Valeo because it was a good school. They didn't pay well, and people wanted to leave very fast. But 6 months at Valeo in your curriculum was very, very important for a future job. But today, things have changed. And maybe you start your own startup and you have a working experience and you learn. There are some things that are new to the business, to doing business, and there are some things that are traditional, like cash flow, business presentation, the pitch, some things that older people know about. And we can teach young people about that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But so there are things you learn. I recommend that you work while you study, if you can. And if you're going to go into an MBA, try to work before you go into an MBA. That's a very good experience, because then you can profit from things you learn because you had the previous experience. But I wouldn't say there's a formula that you go work for a big company, small company, or startup. Work and get experience in working. That's my recommendation.
Okay.
Hey, thank you so much for coming. My name is Peyton. I'm from the United States, also in the Master of International Business program. So like Julia, I have more of a personal question in regard to the empty space theory that you talked about. So as an entrepreneur, how do you recommend balancing going for those new opportunities that only you see and saying, no, I don't think I can take that opportunity. I've already taken too much on my plate. That's a stretch at this point. And then likewise, as a leader, how do you leverage other people around you to then fill those empty spaces that only you see?
But let me ask you something.
Hold on. You know what? I forgot to tell you. I don't know if the people at home can hear me effectively. Can they? Or yeah. You know, can they hear the audience? Okay, good. So I don't have to repeat.
Let me understand something from your question so I answer correctly. How do you? I didn't understand very well what you meant about stopping. Where to stop? Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, of course. So you have multiple opportunities in front of you. So how do you say, I can take on this opportunity, I can take on this opportunity, but at a certain point.
You mean within your own company?
Within your own company, within your own
or what you want to do, as opposed to saying, no, I'm not going to do something. When do you learn to say no?
That's a good way to put it.
I don't know. but I can share with you my experience. When I joined Mercosur, I was in international business and I was in international purchasing, and I loved my job. One day, my boss came to me and said, "You have to move because we need you to do something. Can you study how we can do aftermarket air conditioning for cars? Because air conditioning penetration was not big in Argentina. And we have an opportunity there. Can you work on that? Can you study that?" Okay, yeah, let me do that. And I made a study and they liked it. And one day they came to me and said, "It's so good your study, you're going to move to that." And that was, I said, wow, I don't want to move. I like what I do. Sometimes you're faced with certain things that you have to decide. And I would say two things. Gut feeling works. And the other thing is try to work in things you like. Try to work on things you like. My experience and my happiness in my career was that most of the times, I liked what I did. So if you can choose what you like and you're happy with what you do, I can promise that you would have a successful career. And this is very important. So if you can choose what you like.
Okay, we have some questions in the back, in the front, but wait, Nick, right up here, these guys have been waiting for a little bit, and over there. So I go 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. Okay, right here. Yeah, right here in the way.
Okay, thank you. My name is Benedict Kramer, and I'm also an MIT student, originally from Germany. I think if we look at the automotive industry in the recent years, we can see some interesting conflicting changes. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like there's a lot of uniformization and consolidation going on within the big, well-known brands that still make up for the biggest share of the market. Then also the new EV technology and the reduction of complexity and the drivetrain that you mentioned creates or destructs some of the most relevant entry barriers to the industry. So what do you think, from a consumer perspective, we are moving towards more diversity or more efficiency and consolidation?
I'm not sure if entry barriers are being reduced. I'm not sure about that because the investments you have to make to keep up with growing technology are huge. So I don't see that barrier coming down. Probably what you see is that through technology change, for example, Tesla. How can you explain Tesla? Tesla is difficult to explain if you compare the value of Tesla compared to Toyota, for example. But they were disruptive, and they disrupted the industry. And now many companies need to follow some of the things that were made by Tesla, but they're succeeding. There's lots of Chinese companies doing that now, of which we don't know yet. They're not so well known. But you know, what's driving the change in industry is the ACEs. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Autonomous, connected, electrical, and shared. And this is the things that are, you know, new to the industry. And those who will lead the market are the ones who will introduce the technologies faster. So this is. Yeah.
I had to tell you, you know, I think actually since we're dealing with an international business crowd, I would challenge you to actually go look for that. I think there is variation because of the variation in public policies and the roles of different types of institutions that can deal with the shared cost. So the barrier to entry is really high if you think that it's all going to come from a particular shape of the private market. But we were just talking today, you know, universities changed that. In 1993, for instance, the Clinton administration changed a lot of the way the dole, what's it called? The BIDOL was being implemented, and also the funding. And so what this did is it changed radically the entry and the diversity of firms and who they were pairing up with. So you got combinations that were never happening before. So I think, you know, I think there's going to be, if there really are technological changes, actually the way funding happens and the way people or organizations combine could lead to all different types of entry. So I think that could be happening.
And I would add that before this change in this introduction of new technologies, suppliers were less powerful and in a negotiation way with suppliers. But now they are the ones who are driving the innovation, and the OEMs need those innovations. The power of these negotiations have increased, and this is something that is very important because the main suppliers are working very heavily in technologies.
Okay, Nicolas.
Hey, my name is Nicholas Burr. I'm also in the Master of International Business program. My question is about maybe disrupting the electric car industry. What is your opinion, or Voltu's opinion, about methanol fuel cells that could eliminate the risks of hydrogen fuel cells, but allow you to charge in 3 minutes and have ranges of 900 miles? Are you planning on supplying these producers as well, or have you thought about them?
Honestly, not. I don't know much about that, methanol. But we are a startup, and we are basically involved in EV technology with lithium-ion cells. It will be very difficult to start thinking about that. We will lose our focus for today. But of course, one thing I learned many years ago in my first quality training was that you have to be aware that wherever you are, and there's always a competitor thinking about your death. And
wow.
And why do I say that? Because I don't know about that technology. But you cannot ignore it if it exists. What we have to do is think if this will kill us or will remain. But we cannot change our course now, today, because we are on a roadmap that we need to follow. But we have to study other technologies, the incoming technologies, and which one is going to disrupt this market. For the time being, as far as I know, and as far as I studied, I don't see even fuel cell and replacing, being more important than electric vehicles with lithium ion cells.
I want to, one thing, we have about 5 minutes left. We're going to try to still get to as many questions as possible, but I saw, Dirk, you were writing a lot of interest notes.
No. I just want to know if we can call that Fabio's law. There's always a competitor thinking about your
No.
Fabio's law.
No. I learned it from somebody who was a French guy who came to our company and gave us a quality talk, and he trained us on quality. But
we'll put that in the footnote after.
You can say that I said it, but I didn't invent that.
Okay.
But did you have another?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm intrigued.
Wait, okay. So we have a question in the back. I know we have questions over here. Don't forget, we're going to stick around for a little bit, so you'll be able to talk to Fabio a little one-on-one. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Andrea Lazzarini. I come from Italy. My question is kind of related to Nicolas' questions. So alternative to electric vehicles, there's also the solutions like hydrogens or biofuels. My question is, and it changes also like depending on the cost and the environmental impact. My question is, where do you think the industry will eventually lead or go towards? Do you think there's going to be a mixture between electric vehicles and hydrogens, or looking forward, what do you think that's going to be the trend?
I really don't know. I'm an economist. I try to read as much as I can, and I wouldn't be able to say what I think. But let me share with you some, information idea. You probably know that Toyota has a big quantity of hybrid cars, and they do the hybrid.
Yeah.
Hybrid is the combination between an electric motor and an internal combustion motor, and they run alternatively depending on the needs of the car. They still contaminate, but less than an internal combustion engine. Toyota also has the plant in Japan where they make hydrogen cars. Mm-hmm. Why would they be making so many different, using so many different technologies? Because I believe they're not ready to accept which one will be the winner.
Yeah.
I read some months ago that there was a discussion in the US related to Toyota because they somehow there was a push in some legislation to move into electric, and they were trying to save the hybrid because this is what they do best today. They're not more involved in electric. But probably the answer is, if I don't know, because I'm an economist, I'm not a technical guy, but Toyota doesn't know either.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, question in the back before we wrap up.
Hello, I'm Davide Antonio from Italy, Master International Business Program. I would like to ask you two questions very quick about entrepreneurship, as hopefully I may get close to this world soon. The first one is about like the choice of people around you, like so co-founders or partners, as I believe that these people can determine the success or the failure of your business, of your idea. And so beyond trust and technical expertise, for example, like the partner you had with in Cannes, which are other criteria or some secrets that you learned from choosing partners and co-founders that is important to take into account when you have a new idea that you want to launch? And on this point, like in some bad experiences you had that you felt the risk that someone could take away your idea and kind of be appropriate from you, how you prevent this risk? And if I can ask another quick question, super quick, regarding more like the internationalization and growth. For example, with Automotive, from my little understanding, you go to specific clients, like big car manufacturers, and you explain to them your product. is that more interested with income, and that's something we're very interested about. You are trying to create a global awareness about your idea, and so kind of maybe you target a specific market, but you want really to shout out your idea to the whole world. So how you success effective to do that, if it's a tech scalable solution that you can just scale in any way?
Okay, so the first two questions, first is choosing partners, and how do you know you're not going to get ripped off? Someone's going to rip off your idea.
Choosing partners. It's very difficult, you know, and at Income, we've had the partners, and then we add the founding partners, which still remain, and some partners we invited to join. I would say the first thing is you need to make sure that they are good people. And good people mean that, you know, they're ethical. That would be the first thing I would try to establish. The second thing would be that they share your passion. They're not selfish to put time. When you have a startup, you work 24/7 because you're the company, and you have to do many things, from sending a letter, sending an email, sending and everything. You need to do everything. So, and you do it because you want to succeed, and you want to be. You need passion. So my recommendation would be a good person and somebody who shares your passion, because otherwise you will end up saying, I'm spending 24/7. My partner works three hours a day, 5 days a week. You need passion. That would be my, you know, first answer to your question.
The second question was about but in sharing your ideas, maybe you're worried about getting
there's, I don't have a formula for that. There is a risk. I mean, probably what can protect you is your knowledge. You are the owner of the idea. You have your knowledge, you have your experience, you have your value added. Keep that, but there's, you know, the idea can be ripped off. But if you are strong in your knowledge of what you're doing, somebody can steal your idea, but there are other things that you cannot explain that you own because you are the brain of the idea. But the risk is there.
Well, I'm going to stop us. So that was a great note to end on, because time is we're getting clipped with time. But like I said, he's going to be around. You can still come up and meet him and ask him more questions. And thank you all in the stratosphere for listening in on. And thank you all for coming. Remember, Thursday we have a great event with our ambassadors at 4:30. And please join me with a round of applause to thank Fabio. Thank you, Fabio.